Good evening. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive, and welcome to the latest in our Town Hall series of major issues to discuss here in Westchester County. Tonight we broadened the Town Hall discussion. In the past few weeks when we've discussed issues that relate to youth, to seniors, on issues like housing and economic development, I've had the opportunity to take questions directly and sort of share with you where I think our administration is going and heading. Tonight's topic is the issue of women's issues, and I don't think any man in the world can consider themselves qualified enough to talk about how women feel when it comes to their lives and their aspirations, and particularly what we in government can do to be helpful in that process. So I've got three of our prominent women executives in Westchester County to join me here tonight. It's not exactly a round table, socially distanced. We're in sort of a rectangular shape. But Robi Schlaff is with us, and she's director of our Office for Women. And I also have two of the folks who are with me here on the executive floor level and are very critical in areas of public policy, of program and responsibilities, Blanca Lopez and Crystal Collins. So Crystal, Blanca, Robi, thank you. We're gonna tap your brains and your opinions about things, not only based on what you think, but also what you've seen and experienced. And each of them have had different portfolios of public policy, not just in their current responsibilities, but over the years. Crystal's had experience in healthcare. Blanca's had experience in delivering social service programs through HDSW, and Robi's worked in legislative complex as well as at the state and the county level. So we're very happy to have a large group here. We're going through the COVID pandemic. This now is on the cusp of the completion of our 8th month since the original Westchester COVID patient on March the 3rd. And this pandemic, we assume won't be over until we have a vaccine that's widely available and antiviral treatment. So we're in the middle of something that may not even be in the middle of it, with a long way to go. What do you think the impact of this is? Robi, I'll start with you and then invite Blanca and Crystal to comment. What do you think the impact is for women, particularly in the workforce? Because we've seen a diminution of work. We've seen businesses closed. We've seen some of them open up, but not all of them. How do you think that has affected people? You've talked to a lot of people. We have programs that we try to help women with it. How do you think that affects women in the workforce?
So thank you for the opportunity to be here, and thank you for everything you've done on COVID. It's been really remarkable, and we appreciate it. As you said, we kind of don't know if we're in the middle of this, and we won't know the long-term effects for women, probably for a long-term time out. But what we've seen runs the gamut. The level of the workforce that is the level of lower salaried employees, and especially with our undocumented population, they are really, really hurting because the jobs are just not there. Then you get to the middle level, and people are struggling, women are struggling, especially women are struggling to try to get everything done, to be committed to their work as well as to their children and their parents, and taking care of everything, which is the classic triple-decker sandwich generation. Mm-hmm. And then you get to the higher end of the professional workforce, and they are kind of losing out. It's almost like a repeat mommy track, because they can't spend the time that these law firms or medical practices expect them to be spending when they have so many things they need to take care of. But on a positive note, women are resilient. Women try to do it all because they have great capabilities. And I think that when we come out of this, we will see that the strengths of women really have shown through this crisis.
Blanca, you're in a situation where, aside from the work that you do and the people that you interact with, you yourself, as a working mom, you have little children going to elementary school, you have an older child who's going to graduate, yet here you have a professional responsibility. Right. It involves all different kinds of ways that you're being pulled and being pushed. How has the COVID crisis affected you and the women that you deal with professionally?
Speaking from personal experience, it's a struggle because I've really had to change my work schedule around the needs of my children. Going back from the beginning with respect to when COVID hit in March through June, when schools immediately stopped, they closed their doors. My children were taught online, so I had to change my schedule in order to be able to be with them and to be able to not just make sure that they're signing on remotely, but that they feel safe and they know that they're okay even though so many chaotic things are happening around them. during the summer when there weren't sufficient camp opportunities or any opportunities for children. Again, I had to switch my schedule in order to be able to, look for opportunities, drive them from Worcester, where I live, to, let's say, Greenberg, to be able to provide them with an opportunity there that they could stay during the day while I worked. And then now, when September, once the school started, first month was all remote learning. I had to change my schedule again. Come October, it was hybrid learning. So they go in the afternoon for 2 hours during the school day, and myself and my husband were trying to say, who picks him up, who takes them, who has to jump on a Zoom call. So it's a lot of coordinating. It's just, you need to be very flexible, but it's also a conversation I feel that I have with myself every night before I go to bed. Am I doing the right thing?
Right.
I think it was yesterday, maybe there was a report on NPR saying that more women, regardless of their income level, are leaving their work, their jobs, because they feel that they need to take care of their children. So there's good and opportunities, and there are challenges, but it is a struggle, I must say.
Well, and Crystal, you're in the same situation too, because you have child care responsibilities, yet your responsibilities, you're handling our faith-based outreach, which involves a lot of different people from a lot of different religious institutions, very complicated group of relationships that you have to manage. How do you do the juggling?
Very similar to Blanca. I honestly have to say that it's been a true challenge with having such a widespread amongst my children, them being, one being in high school, one being in college, one being in grade school. It's a real stretch, and just the complete remote learning and having them have separate places, as Blanca was saying, just finding separate places for them to be, making sure that they are able to log on and go on to, and also to be engaged in their schooling. And so it's been a real challenge as well. It's me working from home some of the time, so I have to find the quiet space and the quiet section for me to be on the many Zooms that we've had. And so, but it's been a great challenge, but a great experience.
And let me segue now to the second half of this, which is the things that the county is trying to do to deal with some of these things. Obviously, a county government is not the federal government with the resources nor the authority to do all of these things, nor the state government for that matter. But each of you have been involved in some significant initiatives, whether it's the Access to Justice initiative, things that we've done for housing to deal with eviction concerns. Robi, your portfolio is as broad as there could be in all the different policy areas. Talk a little bit about what you've been involved with in the county to try to deal with elements. And they may not be just driven around women, but women are particularly affected by access to justice, by these issues.
Okay, so for the faith-based partnership initiative that that I embarked on with the Judge Kathy Davidson of the 9th Judicial District, we found that through the COVID process that people, pro se litigants, and individuals that normally would do their stuff themselves from the court system, when COVID hit, the court systems was closed down and they only provided essential services. So this was a need and a gap that was noticed, and so I partnered with the faith-based partnership initiatives and the faith-based community to provide them with a safe space because they didn't have computer access. So.
And this is an opportunity for them. This is an opportunity for them to be able to interact with the complicated court system in the way that the system has to be dealt with now. It has to be remote. It has to be online. And I gather if you don't have that type of either training or equipment, you're sort of left out of the process altogether.
Yes, absolutely. So this was a faith-based initiative. That we provided the computer systems for that population.
Right. Now, I know, again, housing, just as in this issue, affects everybody, not just women. But many times when you have women-headed households, they're the ones that are really at the at the front lines. A lot of concern about evictions. Blanca, why don't we talk a little bit about some of the county's efforts to try to help deal with folks who are facing eviction?
I think also, first of all, we kind of took a step back and listened to the nonprofits who are really at the forefront of what's going on. So we spoke to various nonprofits throughout the county to find out what are people doing, what are people facing, and what are people experiencing. So with respect to eviction, we work closely with the Department of Planning with Commissioner Norma Drummond, and we were able to design 4 different programs that can help county Westchester residents, whether they're homeowners or tenants. County-wide, we have 2 programs that are run out of the Department of Planning, one being the Small Landlord Program, which provides eviction prevention assistance to tenants living in buildings between 4 and 20 units. And if the landlord applies for these for rental arrears through our Department of Planning, they can receive funding if their tenants meet all of the requirements that are necessary. We also have the Moving Forward program, which is also run out of the Department of Planning, which allows for tenants to receive up to 12 months of rental assistance. And these are primarily for tenants whose jobs were in phase 4 of the reopening plan. So these were tenants that were waiting to go back to work, but they just couldn't until the governor said it was okay, until the county met all of the parameters necessary. So for those, people can certainly contact our Department of Planning. They can go to our website. It's westchestergov.com/housing help, and they'll be able to get the applications and the fact sheets. We also have 2 other programs that are specifically for our urban consortium communities, our 27 communities, where residents who live in those communities can receive rental assistance, and they can also receive foreclosure assistance depending on the nonprofits that we have provided funding for. So all of that information is in our county website. Again, westchestergov.com/housing help.
Now, Robi, you've had really an extensive experience in a host of different issues. I think of some of your initiative on domestic violence, which clearly is something that affects women far more than it does men, and it has been something that we've seen on the rise because of the COVID outbreak. You want to touch on some of the efforts and initiatives that you've been involved with in that
Sure.
area?
What I want to start with, listening to my colleagues and to you, is one of the most wonderful things about Westchester County is the partnerships, and the partnerships and cooperation both inside and outside of government. The county departments work with each other, and we also work the Access to Justice initiative, which our office is also involved with, and then the Domestic Violence Initiative. So our new initiative is called the Domestic Violence High Risk Team. And we are training police departments, every police officer in the county, on trauma and how to respond to a domestic violence incident to try to reduce the risk of harm to a family. Because it's not only the adults that are injured in these cases, both emotionally and physically, but it's the children as well. So this is a model program that's really a nationwide model that we started a short time ago, and then COVID hit, and the beauty of COVID is now we can train all the police departments by Zoom. So we're training them by Zoom. It's pretty funny trying to do the technology, and we instruct them on how to assess risk, and the other piece of this is we connect the police officer on the scene with a domestic violence advocate right there to get help with safety planning and to put the victim on the phone so that they can help with safety planning. During the initial beginnings of COVID and the quarantine, what we found is that victims had a very difficult time accessing help because they couldn't leave. They were stuck at home with the abuser. So the police reached out to us and neighbors reached out to us. We were getting calls from police chiefs from the scene. Everybody, all the chiefs had my cell phone number and other folks in our department's cell phone number, and they would call from the scene and they'd say, the family court is not open right now. Some of the local justice courts were not open. What should we do? Can you help us? And we had this incredible collaboration that with the 43 police departments that really, really helps the victims. It's community and police working together to help protect families, and then, when appropriate, have offender accountability.
We're talking with Robi Schlaff, who's our director of the Office for Women here in Westchester County, also with Crystal Collins and Blanca Lopez from our executive team. We're talking about issues that affect women. We've touched on a few of them, and obviously in the half an hour plus or so that we have left, we're not going to talk about all the different things that affect people or resolve all those issues. If you do have a question, you're welcome to put it into the comment page of our Facebook feed that you may be watching. Catherine Chaffee, our Director of Communications, who usually performs this function in our town hall meeting. She'll go back to performing this function at the next one. But she will get some of those issues to ask, and she'll deliver them to me. We'll make sure we ask them. And I do want to point out that Robi and Blanca and Crystal are just part of the executive force here in Westchester County government that's female. We're very proud of the fact that we have a lot of very talented women in lots of different executive positions, not merely just in the total count, but in key roles. We have women who are talented, who are commissioners of our Department of Parks, Kathy O'Connor, Senior Services, May Carpenter, Information Technology, Marguerite Byrne. We have Dr. Charlita Amler, who's done a terrific job for us in the Health Department. We have Anne-Marie Berg as head of our Finance Department. Currently, Mary Mann, ably assisted by Helen May, heads our Human Resources Department. I'm struggling to think of men now as I think about this who are actually running departments. And then we have offices such as our Solid Waste Commission, our Taxi and Limousine Commission, that have top executives who are female. So it's a good diversity of talent that we have. And of course, Joan McDonald is our Director of Operations, Emily Saltzman, our Deputy Director of Operations, the aforementioned Catherine Chaffee. They are executive committee members when we meet. So I'd like to think that the viewpoint of how things affect you come from whatever your background is, whatever your personal demographics are, and your personal life story. But you can bring them into the decision-making process here. So in the decision-making process, let's talk about food insecurity. We know that COVID, because of the amount of people who've been on unemployment, have hurt people's ability to put food on the table. Again, we have lots of female-headed households in the county, and oftentimes the households that are poorest are ones where there is one parent, generally female, trying to make sure that she puts food on the table for a number of children. We've done some programs along those lines, but perhaps you want to talk about a little bit about what those programs are.
So the county has provided $4 million to over 200 local food pantries, as well as Feeding Westchester, so that they have the funds needed not just to buy food, but also to hire staffing. And we have, again, we went through this listening session. We also had someone in our office make a comprehensive list of all of the local food pantries that are needed. So in case any of your constituents would call to our constituent services and say, I need food, I live in Mamaroneck, where should I go? They would have a list, a comprehensive list of various places, whether there were churches, nonprofits, that they could go and access food. So I think by us being able to provide funding to much needed places, they had the food that was necessary and the staffing necessary to be able to deliver those the food or distribute the food.
And Crystal, I assume you see a lot of that need out there in the communities that you're traveling into, folks who really are food insecure, which is the phrase we use now for people who are hungry.
Absolutely, and I've been working with Diane Atkins, who is the liaison for the Department of Social Services, and through the COVID crisis, we had a large list of individuals who were in need of food, and we put together the program similar to what Blanca Lopez was saying. We had the list of the pantries that they can go to, and if they were afraid to go outside, then we were able to partner with Feeding Westchester and the other Hillside Foundation, who was primarily delivering the food sources to the individual households that were in need. And the need is tremendous and is still growing, and especially when the school systems wasn't open and they weren't able to provide the food the kids were also affected by it. So households with children as well. But we did a wonderful job in serving thousands and thousands of families throughout Westchester County.
And unfortunately, the need goes on until we have a fully functioning economy again. Robi, let's talk a little bit about some of the efforts, and they reside in different buckets of county government that involve women in their careers and their workforce development areas. We know that we have quite a large number of women-owned businesses and women-owned, or not owned, but managed nonprofits. They've had some economic issues at hand. So that's certainly an issue that ties into this. We have a working relationship with Ann Janiak's Women Economic Development Group, which I know you've been a part of and working with them. Talk a little bit about the employment side and what women are facing, and how we're trying to respond to that to the best of our ability. Understanding, again, we're not the federal government. We can't, just sort of come in and provide all the resources in there.
Right. I may need Blanca's help on this one, but I know that we have been really trying to make as best efforts as we can to support women-owned businesses, both through WEDC and through economic development.
And our workforce development.
And our
program,
workforce
too.
development. And then we have a women's mentoring network that we started through our office, but there are tremendous efforts to assist women in who own business, who employ women, women that need assistance in getting a job, women that need assistance in trying to move up to get a living wage. That would be the Women's Mentoring Network. So all facets of women in the workforce, I think we assist with. And our office, thinking about food insecurity, housing, women's issues, domestic violence, childcare, our office can be called and we will assist with any of those matters, and we will find the right people to help in those issues. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is we also have some incredible volunteers in the county through some of the Women's Advisory Board, Faith-Based Council. You have so many advisory boards, the Westchester Women's Agenda, you have so many advisory boards, so many people in Westchester who want to help, who want to volunteer their time, their energy, and hopefully their money as well to feeding Westchester and other entities to help those that are needy that are right around us. So you asked about employment. We will help women in any way we can to make sure that they get the services they need. And the immigrant population in Westchester is very large. We know that. It's probably a third of the population. And I really appreciate what you have done and what county government has done to address the needs of people in Westchester who do not have access to the same federal public benefits program because they're undocumented, and that every single person in Westchester deserves to be fed, clothed, housed. And that's a great commitment from you, so thank you.
Yeah. We're all doing this together. Anybody want to add anything to that discussion?
I think the Director of Workforce Development, Tom Kleiner, has announced various programs that could help, especially those who have to work from home. So training opportunities as well, and not just as Robi had mentioned in English, but also in Spanish. So we know that there's a huge need for flexible jobs, and in particular because it does impact women-led households. So.
And we've also, we talked about this at one of our prior town hall meetings with Bridget Gibbons, our Director of Economic Development, that the Business First program that offers grants up to $49,000. Some of those have been awarded now, and also a smaller loan grant program with our IDA funds, $500,000 allocated to that funds, that she, another woman heading another department of county government, has been able to identify, and many women-owned businesses as well as minority-owned businesses were the beneficiaries of those programs. We have a question which I guess Robi followed up your comments on DV. This is from Lakeisha Kiki Wolf Medina. Is there a mentoring program for survivors of domestic violence to help others.
Absolutely. So we use the term peer survivor advocates, and there is nothing like a survivor talking to another survivor to help that person, because they have gone through the same situation and they can relate to that, and we value that very much. So Lakeisha can call us at 995-5972, and we're putting together a list of peer survivor advocates, and we'd love to have you volunteer.
Very good. If there are any other folks that want to ask questions, feel free to put it in the comments section. It'll be retrieved out, and we'll go from there. Let's talk a little bit about child care. Obviously, it was implicit in Crystal's comments and Blanca's comments. Obviously, Robi and I have gone through this at earlier times in our lives, but the need for child care becomes an essential woman's issue. If a woman is going to be productive professionally, and then also, you know, have that opportunity to have some leisure time that they deserve too. So our child care efforts here, and let's credit Blanca, Rosie Finizio from our team for being involved in this, and of course Kathy Hallis with the Child Care Council has done yeoman's work over a long period of time on this program. Anything we want to touch on about our role in working with them to help advance child care? I know we had a program this summer. Blanca, do you want to touch on that?
Sure. So once COVID hit, one of the main concerns obviously was how to provide childcare for essential workers. And one of the things that we were able to put together with Rosie Finizio's guidance was the drop-in emergency child care that we were able to run from the YWCA in White Plains. And that provided a day-long opportunity for kids between the ages of 4 to 12 years of age to come in to do their homework, because we were able to staff it. Thanks to our youth bureau, we were able to staff with child care providers, and we were able to abide by social distancing protocols. So kids who had to, you know, the staffing wore masks, there was a routine. So it gave children that sense of continuation, right? That's while they could not go back to their school, they could go to a school-like setting. And it also gave their parents, who are essential workers, that peace of mind that they're leaving their children in the hands of concerned and caring staff. And that program then molded into a summer program that was run out of Rich Road Park, if I'm not mistaken. I may be mistaken the name.
In Hartsdale.
In Hartsdale, correct.
County-owned facility.
Yes, and it was a camp. Again, it was for children of the same ages, and there were various age-specific activities that the children did. And again, it was led by Rosie. And now there is another program that is being run out of the Boys and Girls Club in New Rochelle, and that provides the same similar setup that we had from March to June. So we're very conscientious that child care is an issue that has been a concern of yours, you know, since even before COVID hit. It's always a concern, regardless if we're facing a pandemic or not. So we're glad that we're able to provide that. And the partnership that we've had with Kathy Hallis and Child Care Council, the conversations we've had with her on a daily basis since COVID hit, it has been extremely valuable.
Well, and that's one of the things I think we all understand, the partnership, that it isn't government alone. It's government, not-for-profits, for-profit entities, corporations, businesses, the religious community, the academic community, that it does take, in fact, a partnership. And we try to work with the state, federal government representatives that we have. We work with the county board of legislators, municipal governments. It takes all those different pieces to, you know, as I always said, it takes a lot of pieces in a jigsaw puzzle to make the whole puzzle visible for everybody. We have a question from Kate Permit, which is, how is the county supporting women-owned businesses and women entrepreneurs during COVID? And I answered part of that, Kate, when I discussed two of the programs, the Business First program, which has grants to businesses 99 employees or less, so it's targeted for small businesses. It's targeted for all businesses, not just women-owned businesses, but oftentimes women have less access to capital, so being able to provide the grant money oftentimes can help women in that particular situation. And then similarly, the other program that we mentioned, which was the IDA Loan Fund. Now, we've made an effort, Crystal, I'm going to ask you about this, to try to deal with women-owned businesses and minority-owned businesses on various projects to make sure that we have an outreach and capture as much of the WMBE community as we can. Memorial Field Project, where we have subcontractors doing different functions and other things. Do you want to talk a little bit about how important that is in the community to have women-owned businesses participate at that level of contract and work for their survival, and also so that the people in the community can see people like them that are doing the work on these things?
Right. Well, I think that's the key right there, to see people like them being able to participate and being able to get those grants and those positions. I know my colleagues, Blanca Lopez and Sherry Rosen Asher, is more involved in working with the the minority women-owned businesses and ensuring that they are being provided the opportunity. So.
And you came out of the healthcare industry, so you saw women who had experience in healthcare then do independent work in the healthcare field. I gather that's a growing field for women in their professional experience.
Absolutely, it is. And for the minority women, for minorities, they're normally at the lower level of work. So like the home health aides and nursing assistants and so forth. And so that's pretty much where the minority women-owned areas.
The next question comes from Marissa Raganese. Robbie, I'm going to direct it to you. This is one for which it's hard for me to even comment on, but I think the three of you, as both women and as mothers, can perhaps comment this. How is the county addressing the widespread sexualization of women and girls? Obviously, as you think about how you want to answer that, we don't have Marissa here to sort of elaborate a little bit on this, but I think clearly, and I'll play the age card here since I've got all of you by a few years. I've seen the difference. I'm the father of a daughter, and I have a sister who's a couple years younger than me. I've seen the difference of growing up in one generation and what it's like now to watch young girls grow up in another generation, and how much more emphasis there is on your sexuality at a younger age. And you know, as I remember thinking when my daughter was growing up, there'd be due time for her to be a full-grown woman. Let her be a little girl for a while. Let her enjoy what it is to be a child. For some reason, boys don't have that same kind of pressure. Robbie, I don't know. Do you have thoughts on this? All
right. Well, thank you for giving me time to think about it. That's appreciated. So what I was thinking about when you asked that question is, I think having professional women role models is the best way to look at gender as not being as sexual. You know, we are all professional women. We were talking about what we wear and how we present, and not flashy. You know, we dress for work, and we let other women know that we are respected for what we do, not how we look. And I think that has to do with the sexualization. I think one of the premier programs in the county is the STEAM program through Sister to Sister International that helps black girls get into tech fields. And if you think it's sexy to be an engineer, then that's cool. I mean, really, that women should be promoted and encouraged to be in fields where they can make a lot of money. And I think that would go a long way towards not looking at women and girls as sexual objects, you know.
The first thing I thought about was the fact that I have 4 boys, so I'm safe in that category. But as far as, you know, the girls obviously coming on to my boys is the other side of the coin. But that is a very interesting question and topic for this, you know. So.
Well, these are the kind of topics that our Women's Advisory Board can discuss, because we're talking about not just shaping a program, but trying to present an overall theme in the way we operate. And I do think you're right, Robbie, that the number of women that we have who are in professional roles become a role model. No, you don't have to follow the role model of pop culture. Pop culture, let me speak from a guy's standpoint. When you're a young boy, pop culture says if you can be an athlete, or if you can be a music professional, rap star of today, rock star of my youth generation, or an astronaut, those are kind of the desirable fields. They don't say being a professional accountant or a top-notch lawyer is something to aspire to as a man. You realize over time that your talents may not be in throwing a football or shooting a basketball or whatever else it is, that the pop culture drives you in the direction. And obviously the same thing applies for girls as well, that there's certain role models when you're younger. But you do have to look up and say, hey, I see somebody who's a talented woman, and I'm a young girl. And I think of my good friend, our good friend, Andrea Stewart Cousins. Here is a strong black woman who is smart and intelligent, and she has become the leader of the New York State Senate. And I remember being in a portion of the district that I represented, which Andrea obviously did not represent. We were side-by-side districts, and a young African-American girl says, I want to grow up and be like Andrea Stewart Cousins. So you could see already that that was the case. And part of that is gender, and part of that is also our various demographics. The four of us have different demographics, whether it's religious difference or age difference or gender difference, but that you can be successful whatever your demographic package is. That's really the key. You know, because for many, many years you had to be a white guy in order for you to be successful. And you can be as successful as a white person, but you also have to show competence and ability, and you can show competence and ability whatever that packaging is. But it is a concern, I think, sometimes when I watch it from pop culture, that pop culture sometimes wants to buttonhole you someplace, you know, maybe in your teens, and you really want to have more options open to you. You want to see the possibility of being a scientist, of being an engineer, not just being a model, which, you know, is a perfectly fine career if you're able to do it, but not the only career open to you, you know, from that standpoint. Well, Marissa, thanks for probably the provocative question of the day until I get the next one, and we'll try to do this. We're going to go about another 10 minutes or so as part of this conversation. You're welcome to comment on the Facebook page. We're happy to have that. And as I've mentioned, I think it's helpful if you're interested in understanding more about the county programs that affect women, reach out to Robi's office. We're going to ask her at the end of this to, you know, convey the phone number and the email address that you can be reached at, because her office performs certain particular functions and services, but she serves as a great liaison throughout the government to connect you to other departments that may have specific programs and services as well. So we'll do that just before we wrap this up in about 8-9 minutes or so. I'm George Latimer, by the way, Westchester County Executive. You're looking at the most recent in our Town Hall series. Our next Town Hall meeting, just to look ahead, appropriately will be held 2 weeks from tonight, which will be on Veterans Day, November 11th, and we will be talking about the role of veterans in the society and what some of the things are that Westchester County can do, and of course at a broader level. And we'll try to continue these kind of topics. You know, in the age of COVID, we can't hold public forums the way we normally would, as we're all trying to, you know, reduce ourselves from virus. Take the mask on, put the mask off, we're talking, but so we're trying to at least use this format while we have it, in lieu of what would have otherwise been public meetings in which we would have invited people to attend. Robbie, let me go back to you now with a chance for you to talk about some of the things that you're working on, separate from a particular question, things that you think would be helpful as issues that you see that affect women, and how your office is trying to craft responses in some of those areas.
So we are a hybrid office. We provide direct services to women as one of 3 non-residential domestic violence service providers in the county. So we have some folks at the courthouse, in the office, and the courthouse is open. We do have people on site at the courthouse to assist with victims of domestic violence filing petitions for child support, custody, orders of protection. We do a lot of policy work. We work with the other departments, with my colleagues, and that would be on domestic violence and other issues. One of the big issues that we're working on this year with the Women's Advisory Board and the Women's Agenda, which you know about, is Black maternal health and improving outcomes for Black women. New York has an unfortunate statistic of having a lot of Black mamas die in and around childbirth, and it's an issue that you we're very interested in, and we talked about at a Women's Advisory Board meeting. The Women's Advisory Board will hold a town hall on that, as well as 3 other issues that we talk about. First one, staying sane in the pandemic. Something for all of us to look at. Immigrant women, specific issues regarding immigrant women, women's health equity issues we talked about, and economic equity, which Blanca is going to help us on. So we run the gamut. What we spend a lot of the day on is getting calls from people on all kinds of issues, and like you said, our phone number is 995-5972. It's westchestergov.com/women. But we pride ourselves as having people in our office who have worked for county government for decades and can really help refer people to the proper place for information and referral if it's not something that we can help them with.
Very good. And I'm trying to remember to do this. And I think we should chat a little bit as well, even though, again, it's not directly targeted to women, but both Crystal and Blanca, you've been tasked with serving as our liaisons to the police reform task force that is looking at a series of issues that we've impaneled it as of June. It's a large group, lots of discussion going on, public forum just held last night, the third in a series of these virtual forums where they're listening to input. Tell us a little bit about the construct of that committee and some of the work that they're doing. Blanca and then Crystal.
Sure. So the committee itself began actually following up on your response to the murder of George Floyd in early June. You had actually asked for a committee to come together and fully review policies and procedures at the police academy, which is under our Department of Public Safety. And I think maybe a couple of days after that, the governor then signs an executive order requesting for each municipality to put together a plan of reform of their own policing and to be able to do that so that it is certified by their local legislative body and that it's then submitted by April 1st of next year. So the committee that you had created then grew into a 36-member task force, and which is great, actually.
You can't have too many good people around the table.
Which is great. And the committee is made up of law enforcement professionals, criminal justice advocates, black clergy. We have representatives from legal aid. We have our commissioner and deputy commissioner of public safety. We have our executive director of the Human Rights Commission. We have our executive director of the Youth Bureau. So we wanted to make sure that the task force represents our county. And it's a nice mix of people who work in the county, but also advocates and other residents and those who work here as well throughout Westchester. The task force has been meeting monthly since July, and in August they created 6 working groups. We have community engagement, we have policies and procedures, we have accountability, we have transparency, we have recruitment and I'm sorry?
Qualifications.
And qualifications, yes. And again, all of this information can be found in the ad hoc section of the county's website under police reform. And we have been going around listening to the public. That is one of the most important components of the plan that the governor wants us to follow. And every time that the task force meets, they provide a series of recommendations from each working group. Our hope is to be able to have a report to present to you by the end of the year, and then you would then hand it over to the Board of Legislators for their own review.
Very good. And Crystal, as you participated in this, what's some of the vibe you get? What are people talking about? What's the reaction? Obviously, you know, we created a committee that is representative with people from law enforcement, people from the social justice community, members of the clergy. So there's a give and take. And it can be, you know, aggressive because people hold strong feelings. What do you get out of the gist of the give and take?
Actually, I think that they are working together. Like the law enforcement is actually receptive to hear the differences and starting to work with actually having conversations that are hard to have talking about things that are hard to talk about, but being comfortable with being uncomfortable and having these candid conversations. So it's been surprisingly, they've been working together. Yeah.
Good.
And Blanca said we have a meeting once a month. Is more like 4 to 6 times a month we're meeting. So I think she was
general
being very
task force.
generous.
The working groups meet more often.
Yeah,
yes.
we don't
Being
lack for
very
meetings here.
generous.
That's for darn sure. But at least if
it's
we
been-
get to the end product, then that's
Absolutely.
hopefully. We've been talking with 3 of our top women executives in Westchester County, and we're going to go through them once through now as we sort of wrap up the Lawrence O'Donnell last word portion of the program. We've been talking about women's issues and, of course, doing it in the context of the work that they do for Westchester County government, a couple of questions we've gotten from the public. So any parting thoughts? We'll go Crystal and then Blanca and then Robi. We'll let you close. Any parting thoughts, Crystal, about the issues that women think about that are important to them, and how we in the county government react to that?
I think my parting thoughts would only be to thank you, George, because you have been such a leader for Westchester County and have been a listening ear to the entire community. And there's not a topic or a subject that we cannot come to you and talk about. So anything that we're hearing in the community, really, we can bring it to your attention, and you are there for everyone. So leaving the parting thoughts just to say to keep up the great work that you are doing, and I'm extremely proud to be working for you.
Well, thank you. We're working together, and I prize the thought that we all do work together with different responsibilities, and I'll give the credit to my mother and father, particularly my mother in the case of this. When you're a young teenage boy, sometimes you have to have it drilled into your head literally, but Loretta Latimer did a very good job of making me more sensitive to these things. Blanca, thoughts that you have as we conclude our conversation?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having this important discussion, because I think sometimes we kind of forget about women's issues. But in all honesty, women's issues are everybody's issues, right? What the role that women have in your administration and decision making and communicating with nonprofits and other entities, we have women in mind at the forefront, right? Any decisions that we make impacts everybody, and for the sake of a better Westchester. So I think it's just important to have this discussion and not forget about women, but at the same time, we're making all these important decisions on an everyday basis that impact everybody.
Yeah. And Robi, as I've said before previously, you've had experience at the state level of government. You've experienced here in the county government, worked for different administrations. So you've had a good perspective over time. Where do you think we are policy-wise right now, and where do you think we need to go?
So you and I know each other probably 30 years, and we have had the conversations over and over again about what we believe the role of government is. And I think that this administration, under your leadership, and it is, you're the top here, and you are the role model, and it's about lifting people up. And that is, to me, the most important function of government: lift people up. People at the top of the income spectrum, they may not need our help. It's the people who need to be lifted up, where government comes in and tries to lift them up. And then, of course, we have to vote.
Well, we've been talking with Robi Schlaff, Director of our Office for Women, with Blanca Lopez and Crystal Collins, who are here on our executive floor with program policy experience in a host of different areas. We want to thank the 3 of you for being here, part of this dialogue and discussion. I want to thank off camera the great Catherine Chaffee, who was able to provide some of these questions. And if there are additional questions, you can reach us at communications@westchestergov.com, and that might be on any issue at all, and we'll figure out how to respond and how to handle it. We thank you very much for being with us tonight. We thank those of you who are watching live, and if you watch this on a tape delay and you think of something, you can communicate with us, and we'd be happy to get back to you. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. For this purposes, you can join us in 2 weeks, where our town hall topic will be veterans. We will be communicating with you on Mondays to give you the update on the COVID outbreak, and very soon, I think on or about November 10th, we will be preparing the 2021 county budget. We'll have a press conference. We'll release it to the public. We'll deliver it to the Board of Legislators for their review. And we'll try to do the work of government even as we try to protect ourselves from the COVID outbreak. So thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful evening. Stay safe.